Good morning, friends, and welcome to my today's lecture on My Story, the autobiography by Kamala Dàs. My Story is an autobiographical book written by Indian author and poet Kamala Dàs or Kamala Suraya. The book evoked violent reactions of admiration and criticism among the readers and critics. It remains, to date, the best-selling women's autobiography in India. Now, my story is a chronologically ordered, linear narrative written in the realist style. This autobiography, Ente Katha, that is, my story, was first released in Malayalam in 1973. It consisted of a compilation of her weekly columns in Malayalanadu that had already become a sensation across the state. 15 years later, this edition of Malayalam, it was translated into English with more text added, many parts rewritten and published with this title, My Story. As we see on the front page or the cover page of the book itself, written by an article or a view given by K. Sachidanandan as, I cannot think of any other Indian autobiography that so honestly captures a woman's inner life in all its sad solitude, its desperate longing for real love, and its desire for transcendence, its tumult of colors, and its turbulent poetry. Now, my story reveals from the first time in Indian English literature the openness and frank confession by a woman writer of her sexual needs. In this book, Kamala Dàs recounts the trials of her marriage and her painful self-awakening as a woman and a writer. She was one of the most prominent feminist voices in the post-colonial era. She wrote in her mother tongue Malayalam as well as in English. To her Malayalam readers, she was Madhavi Kutty, and to her English readers, English patrons, she was Kamala Dàs. Now, this book, my autobiography, my story, is about Kamala Dàs' personal and professional experiences as a woman in a patriarchal society and a quest for love in its truest form. Her writings consisted of vivid descriptions of menstruation, puberty, love, lust, lesbian encounters, child marriage, infidelity, and physical intimacy. She introduced her readers to the concept of female sexuality, a notion that was non-existent till then. She talked of her brush with love with an 18-year-old girl right before Dàs was about to be married off. She talked of having to look for love outside, in quotes, its legal orbit because she was unhappy in her loveless marriage. She talked with an audacity never seen before, as she wrote unapologetically about everything the conservative Kerala society had managed to box in for very long. It managed to evoke such a widespread reaction that was in equal parts both shock and adoration, that it has become a cult classic in the genre of Indian autobiographies ever since. Now, when we read through this novel, My Story, we see that the opening chapters depict a colonized childhood resonant with the theme of oppressed womanhood. The father, a Rolls Royce and Bentley salesperson, stood as an intermediary between the British corporation and the Indian upper class. Das similarly showed the characteristics alienation of being suspended between indigenous and colonized cultures. Now, descriptions of physical intimacy in women writers posits women at the receiving end of sordidness and humiliation. Since Kamala Das was brought up in an authoritative atmosphere where her father's word was law and mother had little say in the household matters, Kamala looked for a loving and understanding husband. His attitude to sex, aggressiveness, and brutal made her complacent and immune to his so-called acts of love. His flirtatious relations with his cousin made Kamala indignant. So my story is a collection of her sufferings as a woman and as a writer. More about the autobiography My Story and Kamala Das I'll be talking about in my next lecture. Till then, goodbye and thank you.